Next thing, okay? Role playing, okay? Talk about silly things that you could do together, okay? Try it. There's a reason I do this. I deliberately did this because I want you guys to see what most of you are going through. It's the same thing. You must barrel through this. Everyone, every good pickup artist that's come up to this platform has had to go through this phase. Probably not in front of a zillion people, but they've had to go through this in front of women.
That's comforting.
Okay, let's try it again.
From the top?
No, just some, nah, dude. Okay? Let's give it, come on, give it some kind of role play for me here.
Role playing? Let's see.
Look, you're in LA, right? What silly thing could you do together, okay? You could go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame or something, jump on a star, jump in a puddle, anything.
Anything?
Yep.
I can tell this one's hard for me. Okay. Okay.
And you guys want to help him? Anyone want to step up?
Read him as if he's a guy. You're having trouble because you're trying to imagine a woman. He's a guy. Just read the guy.
Okay. Look, where have you been today?
Let's see here.
Where's the funny place you've been? Where's the funniest place you've been?
Lots of places. But man, funny. It's amazing. When you get up on stage, you just go blank. I swear to God, it's just
the
like
same
gone.
thing with women. Okay. All right. How about, have you ever been camping before?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Europe before?
No.
Have you ever been to New York before?
No.
Have you ever been somewhere cool in the States before?
Yes.
Where?
Well, Disneyland?
Disneyland, okay? So you know what? We could go to Disneyland together. Come on.
You know what? We could go to Disneyland
And
together.
what stupid thing would you do there? You see Mickey Mouse, you tackle him or something. What would you do? Okay? And because I could tell you tackle him, okay? You're kind of aggressive. I can see that. Here, let's see you flex. Flex. Oh, damn, right? You'd be all over Mickey, okay? All right? That's what we're talking about here, okay? All right, got it? Okay. What could you misinterpret? Look, see her knees pointing at you, right? What does that mean?
She's coming on to me.
Ooh, uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Back off.
All right. You guys get that? Okay, good. All right. Can you go home and practice this?
Not at home. Gotta go out in the field.
Good, good. Can you guys go out in the field and practice this?
Yes.
Good. All right, give me a hand, guys. Great job, guys. That was great. Okay, you're done. It's done.
Thank you.
Yeah, here, you want to give those back to David for me? All right. Okay, thanks for sitting through that, guys. And thank you guys for coming up. That's a huge help. I guess the reason I did that is, look, I've been talking to these things for a while now, and I've seen a lot of guys that aren't pushing through it. So what I'm trying to show you guys here in this little talk that we had is to push through it, okay? I wish for all you guys to have all the success in the world, but what it comes down to is yourselves. Getting out there, pushing through those awkward moments, learning how to talk, learning how to connect it so you're outside of your head and you've got those words coming out. Now, the last thing I'm going to say on this, just to make it clear, the 90-10 rule is only up until the hook point. You don't have to keep talking and talking and talking, because that's like being a dancing monkey. But you do have to keep that ball rolling until the girl is on your team. So go in there, assume value, go in confident, go in smooth. Watch your nonverbals, make them tight. Tap, tap, in, take command. Don't just give it to her. Start talking, get her laughing. Cold reading, storytelling, role-playing, misinterpretation. I've got 30 or 40 tools like that, but those are some of the most basic ones. Can all of you guys commit to going out there in the next week and trying 10 approaches in one night? Can you try that? Can you commit to that, yes or no?
Yes.
Good, okay? You guys gonna do it? You swear? Yes. Good, all right? Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your help.
All right, if one of these guys wanted to take advantage of one of your live training programs in the field, how would they get a hold of you?
Thanks. Go to www.realsocialdynamics.com. That's Real Social Dynamics, guys. My only goal, and I'll just say this, you come on the program, is that by day 3, you have this stuff natural, instant. You can go in there, you can get the vibe going, you can learn how to get it done. That's my goal. You come there, you take advantage of it, you come in with the right attitude, it'll be the most rewarding thing you've ever done. You come in there looking just to be passive, it'll be a waste of your time and my time. So any of you guys that are looking to get it done, I'd love to see all you guys there, okay?
Give them another round of applause, guys.
Hey, Thanks a lot, man. Great.
I would like to introduce you to another friend of mine. This is a gentleman I've known for a few years now, introduced to me by a mutual friend who you will also see speaking tomorrow. This gentleman is very, very interesting. He is billed as the world's greatest pickup artist. This gentleman has traveled the world. He has trained people all over the world. He's also a professional illusionist. He has dated some of the world's most beautiful, charming, and alluring women. And he's going to come just boggle your mind with a bunch of things. So will you give a warm welcome to my friend Mystery?
Thank you so much.
Need anything? You
I'm good.
Okay, good.
Hello. Good evening, gentlemen. And a couple women back there. There are a bunch of secrets in my life that I don't allow many people to be privy to. But here's one that I'm going to give you. Please, don't tell anybody. I'm actually afraid of the approach. Put your hand up if you're afraid of the approach. Look at all these secrets being revealed right now. God damn it. I'm afraid of the approach. Wait a sec, you're Mystery. You can't be afraid of the approach. You must be an approach machine. I can go up to any set, 5 set, 3 set, 2 set, 4 set, doesn't matter. I can go into the set, and I can rip it open. And I hate it. This game sucks. How's that for pacing reality? Do you enjoy this game? Do you enjoy it? Let's get real. I don't enjoy this game. I enjoy women. That's totally different, right? But I don't enjoy the game itself. The actual approach is devastating to me. It's hardcore. And you are all here, and you're all a part of this game now. For the next hour or so, unless we do some editing, you're under my care now. And I love each and every one of you. I have a leave no man behind attitude. So what I'm out to do here is to challenge you, all right? Challenge you to become not just good enough so you can get that girlfriend that you were always pining for, but rather so you can be so good that you can have the option to have any woman you want. Now that's a different ballgame. And that takes a different level of commitment, a much greater level of commitment. Now there's no secret that I have dated some rather beautiful women in my time. Yes. And this game is responsible for it. All these rules, hanging out with TD. I mean, we've rolled together. Hell, we lived in the same place together. Hanging out with who you're going to hear later on, Craig. I've rolled with Craig in the field. You know, he's been over to my house. I saw you make out with a girl and do that whole hypnotic thing, you know, oh, and he just lands on her. I'm going to hypnotize you. Are you ready? Oh, just falls on her. It was hilarious. I mean, that's tight game. That is legitimately tight game. Many of the things that I learned all by myself. I mean, there weren't CDs and DVDs and, workshops and seminars. None of this was really around when I got into this game. I thought I was all by myself. Well, guess what? Gentlemen, you are no longer alone. There are other people who have caught themselves up, and who are now offering this information to catch you guys up. But as TD was saying earlier, the responsibility of education lies in the student, not the teacher. So what I'm going to do is provide you some tools, and you're going to have to apply those tools. Now, this is a tough game. This is a very tough game. You will be afraid of the approach because it's hardwired into you to be afraid of the approach. It's a lot like jumping out of an airplane. You know, you're jumping out of a perfectly good machine, and your body is going to react. Your emotional circuitry is going to react by saying, duh, this is not the thing you're supposed to do. Don't jump out of the plane. You're going to have a similar reaction when you are going to approach a woman. We're going to fear the approach for 3 reasons. One is the fear of the actual environment. So let's desensitize ourselves systematically. Now you have a game plan. A part of your learning curve is to systematically desensitize yourself to the environments with which you're going to be meeting these women. Good. That's taken care of. Now, there are two additional fears of the approach, and these are hardwired into your brain because these were legitimate concerns for your ancestors 40,000 years ago and beyond. Here's the first one. Imagine walking up to a girl within your 50-person community. Let's be real. How many of these people, of these girls, are going to be viable mates for you in a 50-person community? Maybe 3, maybe 4? I mean, of 50 people, half are guys, so they're gone. Of what's left, half, right, the 25 girls that exist in your community, how many of them are going to be taken? How many of them are going to be ugly, sickly, too young, too old? There's only a few girls that will be viable for you. You don't think they're going to be taken, at least potentially? Imagine going up to the wrong girl, and then the tribal leader finds out that you're making moves on his girl. And you know what he will do? He's not going to beat you up. He's the tribal leader. He's going to tell his 5 friends to each grab a big stone and knock you dead. And this happens so often that a circuit got hardwired, evolutionarily speaking, the design of this got hardwired into your brain to handle such a real-world social concern. This is a social pressure, a survival pressure. So obviously, that being hardwired into your head, that's not going away. You're going to fear the approach for the simple reason that when you walk up, she may be taken. Now, built into the mystery method, we happen to have a specific way, an algorithm, a way of surpassing that problem. Here's how. When I go into a set, remember the 3 set is your typical, your typical general set. It's a basic set. You're going to go into the set, and you're going to initiate the chat. When you do, you're going to be using what we call an indirect opener. An indirect opener is a short story, maybe 30 seconds long. Okay, not too long, because you may lose them. But 30 seconds long that allows you to initiate the chat with them, convey a little bit of your personality, and not telegraph interest. The minute you telegraph interest, before you've demonstrated a higher value from the next guy or the last guy, she'll just dismiss you. Imagine this barrage of bore. Girls, some girls are so beautiful, they get hit on, no word of lie, okay? I've dated some of these girls. They get hit on 15 times a day. I mean, that's a lot of times to get hit on. Now you think, well, 15 times a day, how many is that? Well, let's see. Let's say you meet a 23-year-old. She started going to public gatherings, clubs, or concerts even, when she was, what, 19, maybe younger? Let's say 19. You know that if you're particularly beautiful, you don't have to show a card. This is LA. You're hot, you're in. So these girls, imagine, they're 23 years old when you finally approach. How many times do you think that this particular girl has been approached? 15 times a day, 5 days a week, really is how much it is unless they stay home. So let's be conservative. Let's say they only go out 3 days a week and they only get hit on 5 times a day, which is, in my opinion, a big lie, all right? But let's be ultra conservative. That is 15 approaches per week. It's more like 15 a day, but let's pretend 15 a week. Over a month, that's 60 approaches. Over 10 months, that's 600, okay? So we're talking 720 approaches a year from 19 to 20, 21, 22, 23. That's 4 years right there. What is 720 times 4? How much is that? Haha, geek test, you lose again. Teasing. How much was it? Yeah, so we're getting close to the 3,000 mark. Realistically, it's more like 7,500. That's how many approaches are being done on women. Did you know that? Did you ever contemplate that? You are the next guy, literally. And very quickly, you'll be the last guy as the next guy approaches because she has desensitized herself to this barrage of bore. The next guy coming up saying, hey, I like your shoes. Where'd you get them? And she'll say, my boyfriend bought them for me. Done. She comes up, a woman of beauty who's been socialized in this manner will come up with a whole myriad of strategies to get rid of you. really fucking fast. That's why we call it the bitch shield. She's not a bitch, just to you. And it works. My girlfriend, if you were to meet her without me around and you didn't know she was my girlfriend, when you met her, she would punk you off really fast. She has to. She's a beautiful girl. She has to punk you off very, very quickly. Otherwise, she'll be trapped in a conversation with you. Ever been trapped in a conversation with someone that you wanted to be nice to? You know, they were being nice, but you were just bored stiff. Uh-huh. You look away. Uh-huh. That's nice. What are some of the indicators that you would show someone if you were trapped in a conversation? You wouldn't keep eye contact. You keep looking away. But you still want to be polite because this person isn't being mean to you. You may even give one-word answers instead of, encourage communication. So if you ever walk up to a girl, you initiate the chat, and next thing you know, she looks like she's not interested in what you have to say. She's looking away. She's answering with one-word answers. Here's a woman who is trapped in conversation. Imagine getting trapped in that many conversations, 7,500 of them. My God, the woman would be bald, pulling her hair out of her head. She has to come up with a kick-ass strategy. She has to come up with a kick-ass strategy for getting rid of the barrage of bore. And the protection shield, or the bitch shield, is her way of doing it. So the only way that we can get to particularly beautiful women who are socialized and have the protection shield as their strategy for getting rid of the barrage of bore is to initiate the chat without telegraphing any interest and then go one step further. We're going to have to disqualify ourselves from being a potential suitor, at least from her eyes. That statement is called a neg. Here are some neg examples. Let's see here. You are so adorable. I can't stand you anymore. The I can't stand you anymore is the neg part. Here's another one. Too bad I'm gay or you'd be so my type. I'd only do that on an all-girl set. A 2-set, a 3-set, 4-set if they're all girls. If there's a guy in it, maybe not. What's another neg? Where's her off button? Does she always interrupt like this? Holy shit. If I wanted any crap from you, I'd squeeze your head. Oh, bring it on. Or how's this for an opener on a 10? I've eaten girls like you for breakfast. Don't make me come down there, little girl. These are examples of negs. If we don't throw them in, then anything we say will be assumed. The woman will presume we're hitting on her. In the first 10 seconds, we have to throw a neg. We have to throw in a time constraint, or what we call a false time constraint. I can only stay a second, I got my friends here. And we're also going to have a story, what we'll call an opener, that is memorized and ready to go for when a woman comes along and we don't have anything to say. And that's why the opener is called a canned opener. This is the can, and it's got to be in the can. It'll be an indirect opener because you're not going up and saying, wow, you're absolutely beautiful. I wanted to find out if there's more to you than meets the eye. Now, certainly, a direct opener can and does work on singles, on a girl who's all by herself, but rarely are you going to find girls all by themselves. If you're only going after the girls by themselves, you are seriously cutting yourself off at the knees, maybe even a bit higher. Indirect canned opener. False time constraint. Neg. Stack to the next routine. Open, time constraint, neg, stack. Those are your first 15 seconds. Right there. Hey guys, first impression, black nails. I can only stay a sec. I got my friends here. Get this. I'm in an elevator. Some schmarmy looking woman looked at me and said to me, "Are you a devil worshiper?" Can you believe that? What did I say to her? Oh, I said, "We're going down, aren't we?" I thought it was funny. Her whole physiology Her whole physiology changes. I'm in one corner, she's in the other, right? You know why you and I are never going to get along? I can already tell. We're too similar. That's it. You wouldn't take my shit, I wouldn't take yours. What fun's that? Where was I? Thanks for interrupting. Jesus Christ, you know, how do you roll with this girl? So I'm in one side of the elevator, she's in the other. And for 26 floors, she puts her head in the corner, averting her eyes to me like I'm the devil or something. We get down to ground level, the door's open, and she leaves, still looking at the ceiling like this. I am not the devil. I'm the devil's helper. And cut. You hear what took place here? I opened with an indirect canned opener. Canned, because it's ready to go. Indirect, because I'm not telegraphing any interest with it. I'm just communicating or sub-communicating my personality within the story. Kind of like a comedian, the way he conveys his personality to the audience. The material is his vehicle for his personality to ride in and drive to whom he wants it to go to. A pickup artist or Venusian artist is a performing artist. And let me tell you one thing, this is important. Right now, I'm standing in front of about 120 men. And if you can't do this, you will not have a 10 in your life. If you are a computer programmer and you have this fantasy of having a Playboy model, this woman did not become a Playboy model and risk ridicule and negative social pressure from her family and her friends in order to date a computer programmer. I'm just curious about something, by the way. Put your hand up if you are either a computer programmer or an engineer of some sort. Notice something. Your parents, in selecting you or encouraging you to be who you want to be, a programmer or an engineer, they have condemned you to be here. That's hardcore, isn't it? You see, certain identities have certain stereotypes. And the stereotype that we want to convey, right, or what we want to convey with this stereotype is that we are pre-selected by women and that we are the leader of men. If you can have an identity that conveys that you're pre-selected by women and you're the leader of men, do you know what that makes you? The tribal leader. Did you know that each and every one of you, in order to convey the correct characteristics to have all the women want you, you've got to convey that you're the tribal leader. Are you truly the tribal leader today? If not, that's why you're not getting laid. In my little circle, a woman will very quickly discover that I am the tribal leader. If you were to take me and 49 other people, men and women, and put them onto an island, and we were never allowed to leave it, I would naturally percolate up to the top to being the tribal leader. I can't help it. It's this desire to do it. And I know why I really want to do it, because I want to have options with women. So that's what makes me desire to be the tribal leader. All of you, every single one of you listening, if you do not take a change in your course of action so that you can become the tribal leader of your community, you will not have the options that you want to have. Let's say you are the tribal leader 40,000 years ago, and let's say walking up to a girl is not going to scare you into thinking that some guy's going to come with his friends and beat your head in, okay? Here's the other fear. And this fear is hardwired into your head. And I would say this is about 80% of the fear that we get for approaching girls. And it all has to do with pre-selection. It's called the boy band principle. Imagine over here is a guy all by himself, and over here is a guy who is surrounded by 3 girls. Every other woman in the room is going to find the man who comes pre-selected with 3 girls on his arms here far more attractive. I mean, like like having big breasts is the best way I can describe it for us. She will feel attraction for this man far greater than this man over here who has no social value being evidenced. We got to be this guy. So, of course, a part of the mystery method is to approach a 3-set, lock in, lean back, get some girls around you so that you can start recognizing proximity when it takes place. Right around about 5 to 8 feet away, there is this zone hardwired into humanity as well as apes. How does one ape, a female ape, meet a male ape if she wants to? He sits down, he's in the grass. Is she going to come right up? No. That could be a dangerous scenario. Is she going to stay well away? Well, no, because that's passive ignorance. She's passively ignoring him. There is this zone of about 5 to 8 feet, and it happens with humans too, it's fascinating, where women will actually find themselves congregating, little 2-sets, 2-set here, a little 2-set over here, and their backs will be towards you. This does not happen to me just based on my clothing or based on my ravishing, beautiful hair. It happens, thanks, Mom. It happens because I'm socially proofed. I lean back, I got girls, I'm talking to them right now, and I can social proof the entire room and have all those women want to know who I am and why these girls are so fascinated by what I have to say. We call this flash game, because I can warm the rest of my room by creating a moment here where if someone were to take a picture, literally, if someone said, hey, let's take a picture of you guys, everyone turns to see who the picture is being taken of, and who, of course, it's mystery with 3 girls. Now, it doesn't mean I'm after these 3 girls. I'm just after the flash to warm up the sets, the adjacent sets, even the ones, start recognizing the proximity of the girls coming nearby, wanting to meet me, but too scared to actually approach, so they'll just kind of turn away from me. But they'll be real close. Now, how do I know proximity is real? Well, I've done some experiments for about a good 2 to 3 years. I would walk up to girls that I thought were in proximity. Like, why are you standing here? It's the weirdest thing to be standing right in the middle of nowhere. You could be drinking your drink over there. What are you doing it here for? Oh, that's right. I'm here, and I'm surrounded by girls. That makes sense. So I would tap them on the shoulder. They'd turn around and go, oh, hi. That would only happen if they were wanting me to approach, right? This is really happening. If a woman does not feel that you are pre-selected by other women, she will not go for you. It's the boy band principle. You take Backstreet Boys and you put them in their first video and you show the world that they're being chased by women. And lo and behold, they start getting chased by women. You think they were actually being chased by women? It was their first video. There's no way that happened. But it works. It's hardwired into our primitive brains and the primitive brains of a woman. No disrespect. They're just as wonderfully dumb as we are. Out-of-date machines. So imagine, there you are in a 50-person tribe. And you don't fear the approach because it's a different environment. We got rid of that. You don't fear the approach because you're afraid that men are going to come and hammer you on your head and kill you. We're not afraid of that. Well, in the mystery method, we have a solution for that. That comes in the form of negging the target. When you say, all right, hands off the merchandise. This shit ain't for free, It'll cost you. If you throw that neg at the target, you make sure that the obstacles, the other people within the peer group, her peer group, as long as they can hear what you have to say, that you're disqualifying yourself from being a potential suitor, they're going to no longer feel threatened by your presence. Disarmed. It is a necessary element to the game. You need to neg the target to disarm the obstacles. Always. If you go in and you start talking to that target, the obstacles are going to presume you're hitting on her because you're just the next guy anyway. She's hot. And they're going to amog you, become the alpha male other guy. They're going to get in the way. Let's just zoom into the pickup itself. In order to master it, you're going to have to train for it. We are always going to be afraid of the approach. A1, A2, A3, and C1 are the first 4 phases that you will find in the pickup. A1, A2, A3 are the 3 parts to building attraction. That's why it's A. A1, A2, A3 is open. That's A1. A2, and open is only like 5 to 10 seconds long. A2 is female to male attraction, where I have to make this woman interested in what I have to say. I need to be an attraction like a theme park has a roller coaster as an attraction. I don't need to get her attracted to me sexually. I just need this girl to recognize that, hey, show's over here. If you say one interesting thing, a woman will say, wow, that's interesting. But if you can string 10 interesting things along in a row, she'll say, you're interesting. It's no longer the material that gets the acclaim for being interesting, but the person saying it. That has to take place in A2. How long does it take? Well, by the time you get to A3, about 3 minutes will have passed. A3 is the mirror opposite to A2. In A2, I'm going to demonstrate a higher value through storytelling. These stories are what we call DHV stories, demonstration of higher value stories. And these stories have basically two main components. One is evidence that I come pre-selected by women, and the second is evidence that I'm the leader of men, because if I've got those two, I am the tribal leader. All my stories are going to be embedded with DHV spikes. I'll go into that. Maybe I won't have time to go into it this time. We'll save that for another time, how to break down a good story. It's a necessary component, though. Then in A3, the mirror opposite, where I demonstrate a higher value, then start looking for indicators of interest in A2, I'm now going to, in A3, make her demonstrate a higher value to me so I can start giving her indicators of interest. In other words, yeah, I'm going to hit on her, but not for several minutes, for somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. Do you see the beginning of a structure? I cannot begin A2 and demonstrate a higher value until I first neg the target. So I've got to neg the target and DHV. That is the objective of A2. But I can't even get to A2 if I can't do A1, which is open. And a part of opening is do not telegraph interest. And that's why we use an indirect canned opener. And false time constrain ourselves. We can only stay a second. If you can handle that in A1, that'll lead you off into A2. In A2, you're going to demonstrate a higher value and neg the target, so they'll allow you the opportunity to DHV. Then you can move off into A3. A3 is where I will say, for instance, I'll say to a woman, you are a very beautiful woman, but beauty is very common. What's really rare is a great outlook, energy, personality. You got 2 out of 3, it's a good start. What do you want to be when you grow up? If you could be anything in the world with no chance of failure, what would you want to be? Don't say princess. If she starts jumping through your hoops in the A3 phase here, you are solidly now in A3, and she is trying to qualify herself. We need that. But it doesn't happen until A1 and A2 are complete, about 3 to 5 minutes in. Now, wait a sec. This whole time you've been standing here 3 to 5 minutes talking to this group, they can dissipate at any moment because you met them standing usually. Very rarely are you going to be meeting these sets sitting. If so, great. You can save a step. You don't have to move them. But sometime in A3, if they're still standing and you've begun A3, so what do you got going for you more than your looks? You can say that in front of the peer group. At some point, you're going to have to move them to a sit-down location, a comfort-building location, because very soon after A3 comes C1, the first phase of the 3 phases within comfort building. You cannot get a phone number until after C1. If you try to get a phone number after A1, after you open the set, what's she going to base her choice on giving, exchanging information with you on? You've conveyed no personality yet. You're the next guy. And the next guy is always, trust me on this, the loser. You're just the next guy. We are not telegraphing our value based on our looks the way women are. Our value comes in the form of legitimate survival value for her. You ever think, why is it that a woman is wanting to align with a man anyway? The answer is to improve her chances of survival and replication. She's going to align with a guy that can, beat up her enemies far quicker than someone who can't. If you can't take her shit tests, How the hell are you supposed to take care of her if shit hits the veritable fan? You got to be the tribal leader. If you try to go for a phone number after A2, great. I've negged her. I've thrown a couple negs her way. On an 8, you can throw 1 a neg. On a girl who, if you're so inclined to rating women from 1 to 10, which I'd never do, if you were to rate a woman a 10, you'd throw like 3 negs. She deserves more. And no disrespect to her, because every girlfriend that I had who was in the 9-10 range, they were appreciative. That's the word. They were appreciative of the fact that I opened with negs. No word of a lie. They're like, I would never go with a guy who would just come up and be nice. But minutes ago, you said that. Just be yourself. But wait a sec. If just being yourself means not getting laid, then a change has to take place. And the change comes in the form of acting like a tribal leader. The neg is a dismissive tribal leader trait. You see? You have to open with a neg. Within the first 10 seconds, you have to have that neg thrown in there. So now let's say you try to get the phone number after you have demonstrated a higher value and negged to be permitted to DHV. Now what takes place? Okay, now again, this is about less than 3 minutes in. If you try to get a phone number, she may actually give it because she is legitimately attracted to you and you were getting indicators of interest from her for the DHVs that you were giving. But she has no comfort with you. She's going to be on the phone with you. There she is talking to a guy that she thought was cool, but she'll think to herself, especially if she's beautiful, why does this guy choose me? He could have anybody. Why me? She doesn't feel like there is a legitimate reason for him to call other than maybe she's hot. She's going to get what we call buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse will be amped up even more so by the fact that no comfort has been built. So a phone number you can't get after just A2. Let's say you put her through about 3 to 8 minutes of A3. Again, A1, 10 seconds. A2, another 3 minutes, give or take. 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the size of the set. A3, 3 to 8 minutes. During A3, you're going to want to move her so you can lean back against the bar or against the wall so you can be surrounded by girls, thereby creating social value for yourself for adjacent sets. Because you're going to do a dozen sets a night. Earlier on in the night, you have no value. At the end of the night, you'll have shitloads of value because you've been seen with women, not hitting on them. If I'm leaning in and I'm gaming the girl, I'm not pre-selected. I'm the one who has to do the leaning back and have the girls around me. I just have to physically do that. So sometime in A3, I will lean back, grab a seat, and have them come join me. It's a very necessary element of A3. Can I get a phone number after A3, after I say, what do you got going for you? No way. Wow, your first impression sucked, but now that I get to know you, you were absolutely incredible. I feel foolish for thinking otherwise. That's one example of a qualifying piece. You can't get a girl's phone number after A3 because, sure, in A2, she liked you. In A3, she feels like you like her for legitimized reasons. That's not enough still. If you get her phone number then, she won't have the comfort to call you. And if you call her, she's going to feel uncomfortable talking to a total stranger. So we need to embed into this, before we go for the phone number, a comfort-building phase, a phase where we can be arm in arm, holding each other, and that's all she's going to get. But it's a great start. So again, just to go through this again, A1, open the set with an indirect canned opener. Throw in the false time constraint. Throw your first neg in. We're beginning A2. Stack, you can still do the same opener into A2, or you can stack forward using multiple threads. You can run 3 to 5 different conversational threads or stories at once, and you'll have to if you want to get good at this. At first, you'll be stacking a story by telling a story, finishing it, starting a new story, finishing it, starting a new story, finishing it. And that's how you're going to fill up your timeline of the 25 minutes, from meeting her to building enough comfort with her, hanging out with her, so that you can get a phone number and have it work. You got to fill a good 25 minutes. You can do it all sequentially, one story at a time, or even better, you can multiple thread them. Here's how multiple threading works, all right? When you multiple thread, multiple threading, by the way, happens naturally in any communication you've had with your friends. It's a natural occurrence to start a story, oh, that reminds me, and start a new one. You can cut yourself off, start a new one. They will cut you off and be reminded of a story. You'll let them tell a story, and then you'll cut them off and start a new one, and they'll cut you off. You'll cut yourself off. They'll cut themselves off, just to tell all these stories. Where was I? Oh, yeah. And then you can backtrack. That's how we multiple thread. By 3 minutes in, when you begin A3, you should have already opened somewhere between 3 and 5 routines that are not yet finished. Stories that are like, they could be 30 seconds long, or they could be 3 minutes long, a 3-minute long story. You go in 30 seconds, cut it there, start a new one. Now, the reason why this is important, there's 2 reasons really. Well, the first reason is it naturally happens when you're in good rapport with somebody, but then you'd think, well, if this naturally happens, why do I even have to think about it? Because it is an unnatural act to walk up to a group of strangers and start multiple threading like it was normal. That's why we have to fake it in. We fake it till we make it, right? So that's one reason. Again, the reason why you can't go for the phone number after A3 is she's going to feel very uncomfortable getting to know you. I'll leave it at that for now. We've got more than enough fodder for you guys to edit together. Finally, we have to add in a component of C1. This is a comfort building component. In A1, we opened. A2, we demonstrated a higher value, started getting indicators of interest, hopefully started testing for them. In A3, we started making her demonstrate a higher value to us so we can slowly but surely start giving indicators of interest to her, but only for legitimized reasons. That's why we ask her a question, and she will respond with an answer that we can go, wow, really, no way. But we will not try to get her to talk until A3, because in A2, that's my time. That's why I agree very strongly with TD's 90-10 rule. We'll be doing 90% of the work, and we'll let them falsely give 10% of the work. But when A3 rolls around, this is when things change. Okay, you're about 3 to 5 minutes in. You have demonstrated a high enough value for her to start respecting who you are and not dismissing you like you are nobody, thanks to these certain DHV stories that you've embedded. Then in A3, you've qualified her. You've asked her questions that she has answered, and she feels like you legitimately like her for real reasons. Then there you are in comfort, arm in arm, beginning what we call kino escalation. And again, we'll leave kino escalation for another time, but it is an entire area of the game that you can master. You see the sequence of events that take place? In order to become a master of A2, which is really female-to-male attraction, you have to become a master of A1. Now, I'm not even going to go further down the road, because after you get a phone number, you have to see her again, and then you're on a day 2. What do you do on a day 2? What if the day 2 turns into a day 3? How do you have proper kino escalation throughout it so that she won't feel creeped out when you want to kiss her? Because I tell you, if a girl feels creeped out holding your hand, she's not going to allow you to kiss her. So you need proper kino escalation. And that happens through, the comfort building that takes place when you first meet her there, about 8 to 10 minutes in, all the way to getting her phone number, and then you got greater and greater comfort building all the way up to seduction later down the road. If she's uncomfortable kissing you, she's going to feel uncomfortable having sex with you. So obviously, you have a sequence of steps that must take place. But that's all for comfort. You can't even get good at any of this stuff until A1 becomes mastered, which is why we're here today. There's a lot to go to get good at. It'll take about 3.5 years to reach mastery. And I promise you, it is worth it. It is really worth it. I mean, my life has transformed. The options that I have in every city I go to. No word of a lie. I don't deserve it, but I figured it out. And all you have to do is learn it, train for it, and master it. And it begins with A1, the approach. You're always going to have approach anxiety. It's never going to go away. So how can we deal with it? give you a few little tidbits for dealing with it, all right? We have one rule called the 3-second rule. The 3-second rule you may have read about. It's something I popularized on the internet within this community. It's pretty simple. You see the girl, you start approaching. That is, if the set is approachable. If it looks like a good set, I'm not going to have an interrupt happening in the first 3 minutes. You know, they've come in and they're about to buy themselves a drink at the bar. I'll hold back. I'll wait for them to get the drink, find a place where they can settle down in order to enjoy their beverage. But until then, I'll hold back, because otherwise I can have that interrupt. So barring interrupts or foreseeable interrupts within the first 3 minutes, I will abide by the 3-second rule. There's a set of 3 people, and as I'm walking, I'll just go in. It takes me about 3 seconds to go from here over close enough so I can engage them. That's why it's called the 3-second rule. And also, some women are good from afar, but far from good. So the 3-second rule is reactionary, very reactionary. Let me try something here. Good enough. You caught it and lost your pen at the same time. Good. You caught it. I didn't tell you about it. You just went for it. Can you imagine if all of us just decided today to form a pact, a training pact, where anytime there was an approachable set, we'd approach? Why? Because we can't turn it off. It's a rule. It's the 3-second rule. What if I'm at a crosswalk and there's an old lady beside me? I'm not going to hit on her. Remember, in this series of steps that take place, A1, A2, A3, I'm only hitting on a girl when she deserves to be hit on in A3 for legitimized reasons. I will ask her a question. She will demonstrate a higher value to me by answering it, hopefully okay. And then we get to reward her by giving her an indicator of interest for whatever she said. That's A3. So if there's an old lady, why can't I talk to her? Why can't I talk to a kid? I'm not planning on anything weird with either of these, but I can initiate the chat, thereby practicing, adhering to the 3-second rule, and training for when it counts. Because I'm telling you, you are going to want to say no. When a 10 comes into the room and she's got 4 guys with him, or with her rather, what are you going to do? Are you going to approach? You will come up with 1,000,001 reasons not to do it. I didn't shave today. I'm wearing my glasses. Yeah, screw that. That's your set. Go in. This is a training exercise that I hope you will put yourselves on if you decide. All you got to do is snap. Let's hear some snaps. Anyone want to decide? I mean, you're here. Every time I heard a snap, that's a decision to go, all right, I'm abiding by the 3-second rule from now on. And that's going to hurt. But when you're jumping out of an airplane, you don't choose whether you're going to jump or not. When the doors open and you're in the air, you choose when you sign up. Well, many of you guys signed up years ago. You're in this. You're in the game. I personally abide by the 3-second rule. And my game is much better for it. Some of my former students have also abided by the 3-second rule. And our games have improved. All of their games have improved because of it. Without the 3-second rule being abided by, where the hell's your learning curve? How the hell are you supposed to be getting good at this for a time when a woman of particular beauty comes along? Are you going to have the skill set to get her? There's no hope in hell you'll have the skill set to get her. You know, I remember a former student of mine, really good friend of mine, really kick-ass guy, 26, right, Craig? Remember 26? Cool guy. I once saw him sitting there with a very large woman, 450 pounds at least, all right? Not once did I go, what the hell are you doing? Because I knew he wasn't going to have sex with this girl. She was having the time of her life, and there weren't any, you know, it wasn't a target-rich environment at the time. It was early in the evening. So he sat down and ended up shooting, you know, the veritable shit with this lady. She was a good person. It's like me talking to a guy. Do I think I'm going to game the guy? No, but I may tell some stories that I've entertained women with before. I'm practicing. So to get good at the approach, you need to 3-second rule it. Here's the other thing that the 3-second rule does. It will keep your approach anxiety from increasing to the point where you hit that threshold of analysis paralysis. You know, I'm like, oh, God damn it, I've been here for 3 minutes, and there she is. She's so hot, I want to do it. How do I do it? You've already staled out the set. If you would have gone in right away, it could have looked aloof, spontaneous, on the fly. You would have looked naturally confident because you don't care. There's a distinction between confidence and bold, by the way. Bold is when you jump out of an airplane yelling, Geronimo! And confident is when you say, all right, guys, I'll see you at the bottom. Right? So we want to create the air of confidence. I'm not concerned whether you're actually confident or not. Don't get me wrong here, okay? Competence is what counts. But to convey an air that you're confident, that you've done this before, it's no biggie, then you won't creep her out, freak her out. All right? You, by doing the 3-second rule right away, will not have that threshold hit. And you can approach. The minute I see a set and I go, wow, that is a beautiful girl. Okay, shut off the fact that she's beautiful, in I go. Don't think, react. You caught that damn thing. You're reactionary. Some people, honestly, I shit you not, they get beamed in the head. Don't let these girls beam you in the head, all right? The set's going to, the opportunity is going to present itself. The set is going to present itself to you. It's going to be there, bam, and you're like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I say? What do I say? Well, isn't it funny how you could have thought, well, what would I say back when you were at home? You could have prepared with a canned opener, hoping to situationally come up with something fly like nice shoes. Thanks, my boyfriend bought them for me. Cut, stack. The girl will just move on. And you'll get caught in that unless you have a question or a statement to make in the can, ready to go. And it'll look spontaneous from her perspective. Certainly at first, the first few times you use someone else's material, like you saw here with the guys who came up with for TD's segment, they've never said this material before, you know. We expect them to not have it together yet. But from the first time they said something to the last time they said something before they got off the stage, they already got better, didn't they? Can you imagine doing 12 sets a night, 4 nights a week? Now, if that sounds ambitious to you, let me tell you from a guy who has met some great POAs, it's not. It's only 1 every 20 minutes on average for a 4-hour period from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m., nightclub hours. Again, I'm not out to make you into a clubber. But I've never been to a club. It's not my thing. No, it's not mine either, man. But you have to practice somewhere. And why not practice in an environment that is target-rich, that gives you a lot of opportunities to interact, and when it's all said and done, nobody cares. They all go home. These girls have been hit on so often and will be so much more after you leave anyway. They're not going to remember you. They don't care. All right? When a girl gets hit on 7,500 times in the course of a 4-year period, you're not that memorable. There's tons of material out there that other people have tried, and it is now true for them, it works for them, but there's a time and a place to put it. And you have to learn what the structure is, and then figure out how to fill in the structure with the proper material. All of this takes skill. You have to get good. It takes training. You can't get to any of this. You can't start the game if you don't get out into the field and do it 12 times a night, 4 nights a week for the next 3.5 years. But geez, that's a lot of commitment. Certainly, it is. And mastery is worth it. It really is worth it. It's a matter of commitment. And the commitment is only proven by approaching. You do not approach, nature will weed you out of existence. If you cannot get good at the pickup, you are effectively sterile. You can get good at the pickup, but only if you approach. You can only get good at approaching if you do it with training, with consistency, and you follow the the 3-second rule, and you just next set, next set, next set, and you get through it, and you're going to hate it. But there's this weird calm that comes over me knowing that when I'm about to jump out of the plane, I'm not doing it for the first time. This is just the first of the next 10 for tonight. There's the momentum that we need. Can you imagine the next girl you approach, okay? Let's not sugarcoat this. She's not going to be your girlfriend. You don't have the skill set, guys. Can you imagine not doing any of the approaches over the next 3 months and then meeting the girl who's a 10 in a 5-set, 4 guys and a girl, you still don't have the skill set. So why don't we train for that moment? This is training. It's the Venusian arts. It's training. It's not learn a couple pickup lines, get a girlfriend, and not bother with it anymore. You know, some people think that I'm good at picking up women because I'm a performing artist, because I can get up in front of you guys today. The truth is, I can get up in front of you guys today like this because I got good at this from picking up women. Because there's no difference between a 3 set and a 500 set. There's no difference. I have to convey my personality. Each and every one of you is going to have to be a performing artist. If you got good in this game, you know what's going to happen? You're going to start speaking, right? The fear of the approach is the fear of public speaking. You ever notice that? It's the fear of public speaking. If you can't do this, the door's there. This is what you're training for. Because when you can do this, you will get laid like a rock star. That's what it takes to be the tribal leader. You're either going to get all the women or none of the women. And it's a big decision for you guys. It can be done. People have done it before you. It can be done again. The decision is, will it be you? I'm Mystery. Keep believing.
If someone wanted to take advantage of one of your live trainings, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, just call me up, you know. Ask for my number.
Give them all your number.
Head to mysterymethod.com, and you'll see pictures of naked girls. You'll love to go there. It's great.
Come, you never told me about that.
If you do want to learn how to do this, here's what the workshop actually trains you for. You want to get A1 down. You want to learn how to approach. You got to add in time constraints. You got to get to A2. You have to learn how to neg. You have to learn how to demonstrate a higher value through personality conveying stories with demonstration of higher value spikes embedded into them. And you have to systematically be able to do it in field, with, in application. You're going to have to pull them in through the A3 phase, learn how to lock in, how to qualify them properly, and how to control groups of 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets. By the end of 3 days with me, you'll be able to open up a 5 set, and you should be able to, most people do, open up a 5 set and be able to take some of those people and move them into a sit-down position or a lean-back position where they're all surrounding you, thereby giving you enough social proof for the rest of the room to have all the other women start finding you attractive for no reason other than because you're pre-selected, and the proximity alert system will start to fill up nicely. That's as far as I'll get you. It's a good start.
Nice. MysteryMethod.com. Give them another round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for being here. Thank you. Okay, so I want to take a second here and tell you about some of the other programs that I have available, some of the other products that I've created. As you've heard me say, I'm really creating the things that I wish that I would have had to start off. Some of my first products, like my Double Your Dating ebook and my original Advanced Dating Techniques program, those are kind of the foundation of everything that I teach, and I highly recommend that you get those. Who has read my ebook and seen my Advanced Dating Techniques program? Okay, good. Who can validate that those are very important programs to get to start this off? Okay, everybody good, thank you. In my ebook, I really, that was the first thing that I did, and it's kind of the rawest thing. It's one of the things that I feel most proud of because I just got the stuff out there. I wrote the book very quickly based on a lot of notes and experience that I had. My Advanced Dating Techniques program was a video of the first live seminar that I did. Actually did it right here in this very same place. Who was at anybody here from the taping of the Advanced Dating Techniques program, the first one? Nice, nice. And in that program, I really teach a little bit about every area. And I think it's really important to start with those two. Next comes my Attraction Isn't a Choice ebook. Attraction Isn't a Choice. And this book is totally focused on the concept of creating and building attraction. It's all about triggering that special kind of emotional and physical feeling and the psychology behind it. And it also comes with a bonus book that's very in-depth called How to Change Yourself. And it includes a lot of good kind of self-help stuff that I've learned over the years about how to change and make change stick. Next is my Interviews with Dating Gurus monthly interview series program. Who's listened to some of my interviews? Okay, pretty much everybody. Good. You've heard some of the people that I've interviewed. A lot of the people that come to these programs and speak, they start out on my interview series, and we do a good interview, and then I say, hey, why don't you come out to one of my programs and speak? And that's how the relationship starts. Sometimes it's the other way around. As you often hear me mention, one of the keys to the Advanced Dating Techniques program or to the interview series program, is just hearing the guys who have a natural comfort and a natural success with women, and just listening to them talk. And you're going to definitely get some gems. There will definitely be, far more than the value, you're paying just for the little gems you'll get, the nuggets, the techniques. But the real value comes in hearing those people just record over and over in your unconscious mind, hey, it's okay to go out and approach women. It's okay to be successful with women. There are guys out there that do this, and that it's very natural for them. And the more you record that on your unconscious mind, the more real it becomes in your life. So you're definitely going to want to subscribe to those. My sexual communication program. Currently, we're on sexual communication second edition. It was originally released in only audio format. Now we have video format, DVD. And the second edition is twice as good as the first edition. Got some great guest speakers. And sexual communication is all about that great little feeling that we refer to as sexual tension or chemistry, and how to spark that and how to grow it inside of a woman. Okay, it's in a lot of ways it's like slicing out the very best parts of my attraction and advanced dating techniques programs and just condensing them and just taking that little piece and really focusing on how to make a woman have that feeling. And it's critical. As I've talked about in this program, the more experience you get with women and interacting with women, the more you can almost feel that sexual tension or that chemistry. It becomes very real. And once you can feel it and you can sense when it's present and you can kind of maneuver it around, you can increase it or decrease it, that's when I think you really have a lot of power over your dating success and success with women. Next is my cocky comedy program. Kind of a universal favorite technique. One of the things that I found is a very counterintuitive but very effective technique that the naturals kind of use. When I was learning this particular technique, it took me months of watching it and actually having a friend of mine explain it to me, and he's where the words cocky and funny came from, before I finally got it. And even after I got it, I still almost couldn't believe that it worked. I can remember one time going out with him, and he said, okay, now say this and do this. And I did it, and it worked. And for a little while there was like a period of time where, even though I didn't know why it worked, I just knew it worked, I did it anyway. It was like flipping the light switch. I don't know why the hell it works, but it does, so I'll keep doing it. So I highly recommend that you learn this skill. It's also, interestingly enough, one of those things that once you get it, it seems very intuitive and normal. But before you get it, it seems very counterintuitive and abnormal. And I've noticed that for guys, it's kind of difficult to cross that bridge. And if you've seen my original Advanced Dating Techniques program, when we had some of the guys share some of their insights about cocky and funny and some of their own lines that they use, they were kind of they kind of didn't get it. You remember in that program? And that was a huge awakening for me when I saw that. So that's what triggered, hey, you know what, I need to do an actual program on this. And this program is 6 solid hours of video or audio. Actually, Sean, who you just saw here, spoke at that program. He's a real funny guy, and he taught some great things. Some of the other speakers that you've seen also spoke there, plus some other ones. We just focus on the psychology of humor and laughter. It's really interesting to me in my own research over the last several years. I've discovered that laughter usually is not triggered by humor. You'll notice that when most people laugh, it's not in response to something that was funny. That was a huge aha to me. Anyway, I'll teach you all the behind-the-scenes stuff and take you through how to trigger that laughter in women and how to use cocky comedy to create attraction. Next, body language for success with women in dating. When I first started, I was fascinated with the concept of body language. I read, some different books on it and so forth, but none of them really explained, okay, the connect between body language and attraction, between how do you use the language of the body, the gestures, the facial expressions, the voice tone, to actually create attraction. And there are a couple of other resources that are out there that are available, but this program, once you see it, you'll realize that there's nothing like it anywhere else. I mean, it's just the most in-depth training that you can get. And you'll learn everything from, different ways to walk, to different ways to talk, to hold your body. You'll understand how to communicate with women back and forth using body language. You'll get a ton of insights. Again, many things that you won't see anywhere else, all brought together in the same place. Next is my Mastery with Women in Dating program. This is the biggest program I've ever done. The product is around 20 hours of video and audio material. And if you look at kind of, Double Your Dating as the ebook, as the beginning, the first step, Mastery is kind of the last step. It's the other end of the spectrum. And in Mastery, I go into a lot of deep kind of psychology. We talk a lot about inner game stuff. I spend a lot of time on inner game. We go far into the inner game. We talk about a lot of ways to go in and uproot those deep insecurities that a lot of us guys have, much deeper than the material that we've covered here. Had just a whole bunch of great guest speakers. And on both ends of the spectrum, we also went into a lot of advanced techniques. And I had a lot of guest speakers that taught some just amazing stuff. So I highly recommend that you get to Mastery. But that one would kind of be at the end of a lot of these other programs. Other programs that are coming out soon, will probably be out by the time that you hear this, are one of my new programs called Power Sexuality. And Power Sexuality is all about this thing that we'll call sexual confidence. In my experience, what I've found is that a lot of guys, and I've been through this myself, have gone through a process of realizing that when they get into potentially sexual situations, and that can actually be when you first start talking to a woman, because let's face it, when you first start interacting with a woman, if you're interested in her for something more than friendship, somehow sexuality is involved in that. But what happens to us guys is when we run into those sexual situations, we become very insecure. We have all of these different types of responses. Some of them are around the idea that we don't know how to please a woman. Some of them are around the idea that, hey, we might think we might not be able to perform. And some of them are just around the idea of confidence in general. And what I found is that if you increase this thing we'll call sexual confidence by getting those different things handled, by learning techniques, by learning different types of mindsets, how to build your own confidence, how to smoothly move from one step to the other, that you will be far more successful with women when the moments come up, when the rubber meets the road, so to speak. You'll be ready. So Power Sexuality. Next is my program, Meeting Women Online. When I first started learning a lot of the different techniques that we're talking about in this program and in others, I found that the internet was a great place to go out and try them. And I met a couple of different people who were really successful meeting women online. At first, when I heard it, I thought, no way. You're not going to meet any quality women online. Well, then it turned out that I met my next 2 long-term girlfriends on the internet, and these are both just spectacular, women. I'm still good friends with them, even though I'm not together with them anymore, and changed my mind about it completely. I've dated some amazing women that I've met online. What I talk about in this program is everything from all the different ways to meet women online, from using instant messengers to personal sites to social networking sites to everything else that you can imagine. But we also talk about the specific techniques, okay, how to start conversations with women online, how to build profiles that attract attention from women. In this program, you'll also meet a couple of my good friends who are very successful at meeting women online. In fact, their success actually even astounds me to some extent. These guys have taken it to just a different level entirely. You'll also meet a friend of mine who I did an interview with as part of my Interviews with Dating Gurus program. And what she does is helps men make over their profiles, get better pictures, make better descriptions, attract more women. And you're going to get some examples of exactly how she does her work. Anyway, get that program, Meeting Women Online. Next is my Meeting Women in Bars and Clubs program. For some unknown reason, men like to go out to singles bars and meet all the attractive women that gather there. And so what I decided to do is do a program specifically on that environment. And Craig, who you met in this program, spent half the program co-training with me. And he went, again, into depth on many of the different techniques that he's developed meeting women in bars and clubs. And as you heard, he actually somehow wrangled himself into a job where he was the host and had an open bar tab, and his job was to buy shots for women. And he learned a lot of good stuff during that time. Or let's just say he refined a lot of good stuff during that time. And you'll hear him talk all about those experiences. So meeting women in bars and clubs. And then finally, my program, Deep Inner Game. Deep Inner Game. And this is a program that I did with Dr. Paul. And he and I spent the entire program going way down into the core psychology, the fundamental issues of, I think, what prevents men from having success with women in dating. And we spent just a lot of really great hours working together on that. And in that program, you'll get to see the kind of the entirety of Dr. Paul's Mind OS system, his theory of the operating system of the human mind. All the stuff that you just saw here expanded greatly. So highly recommend that you get all those programs. If you go to daviddeangelo.com, you'll be able to find a catalog of those. Or if you just go to doubleyourdating.com / and the name of the program. So interview series, cocky comedy, advanced series, mastery, meeting women in bars and clubs, deep inner game, so forth. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears a little bit. And I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine who I've taught with several times now. And this is a guy who I consider to be, personally, I consider him to be one of the leading experts in the world on behavior and psychology. And what he's going to do is he's going to come give you the perspective of someone that has helped a lot of people, literally thousands of people individually, overcome fears, anxieties, social anxieties, and he's an expert at it. Okay, and he comes from a background of medical training. He is a doctor, and he's going to share a lot of really great techniques. Okay, I've personally learned a lot from him. Give a warm welcome to my good friend Dr. Paul.
So, how you guys doing? All right. Well, I'm Dr. Paul. And I was doing some thinking about, what to begin with, because I have a whole lot of stuff for you to geek out on today. And it occurred to me that some of it isn't so funny. And did you know that you can't be both anxious and humored at the same time? One thing that occurred to me is a lot of folks that come to really intensive trainings and become really studious are just too serious. So there's a certain amount of lightheartedness that'd be important to take in the process of approaching women. And so a lot of times when I'm out with my buddies, I like to come up with things that are just enjoyable to me and humorous to me alone. And then I'm not as concerned at all with what the women think. One of my favorite things to do is to be the foreign guy game, do the foreign guy game. So I'll go up to women and I'll say, Guten Tag. And they'll be like, what? I'll be like, Guten Tag. Fräulein. And they'll try talking to me and I'll be like, I don't understand you. What are you trying to say? Come on, speak clearly. And they'll be all on the defensive from the get-go. So another thing I like to do is the pickup line game. And what you do with that is you get a buddy, and the goal is to go out and just have fun, and it doesn't matter what happens on her end. You're there to have fun, and you assign each other pickup lines, like the worst possible pickup lines you can dream up. So this one buddy of mine, Christian, assigned me this pickup line. I have to go up to a woman and I have to say, "Hey, yeah, you. I met you in Wisconsin one time. The spelling bee, 5th grade, I won." So it's, oh, she loved it. Yeah. So the one I gave him was, "Hey, you know what? I think you know my grandma. I'm sure you know my grandma because the other day I was going through her wallet to get a 5, and I could have sworn I saw your picture in there." So anyway, it's good to have a spirit of lightheartedness as you learn this stuff. So let's, if I can figure out how to get these to work. Something I've been involved with for the past 10 years is essentially some psychoanalytic theory that unifies all the various schools of psychology into one model. And I call it Mind OS because the way it operates is just like the operating system of a computer. It works like the operating system of the human mind. And all my materials and ebooks, et cetera, are available at mindosoft.com or drpaul.net. I have a quote for you from an author named Guy Corneau. And it begins to speak to the concept of approaching women. He says, "A man is not a man until he has accessed the raw, untamed energy and taken pleasure in his capacity to fight and defend himself. Only then can he transform his blind rage into the power to commit himself, to handle tensions, and to make difficult decisions. A feeling of inner security also develops. It is based on his realization that whatever happens to go wrong, he can get help from his inner resources, from the basic energy of his aggression. Getting in touch with masculinity and mastering that power is what enables a man to penetrate the world of women, literally and figuratively. As long as a man believes cloying sweetness or blind violence is his only means of defending himself, he cannot enjoy a complete relationship with a woman. Before he can give himself up to the intimacy of a couple, he must be able to survive rejection, and he must make the break himself if that proves necessary. So there's a special power in both being rejected and being able to reject. And so when David talks about the idea of keeping your power for you and establishing your reality and having that be the dominant reality in your interactions with women, that's very important. Essentially, you want to be in the frame of mind where you may very well reject her as opposed to being all that concerned about her rejecting you. There's something else I want to tell you about, a bridge between your inner game and your outer game I call mature masculine power. And it has just 3 components for you to learn, okay? So the whole concept of approaching women, I mean, this matters later on, too, in your courtship ritual or your dating process. But mature masculine power has just 3 components to it from psychology. And these are somewhat scientific sounding words, but I'm going to explain them thoroughly. Observing ego, mature boundary function, and confidence, which someone mentioned earlier. What do you do to get confidence? You can't buy it. Observing ego, in my world, my term, psychoanalysis, is essentially cool. Observing ego is a learned skill that can only be acquired after abstract thinking develops in our preteen years. It's essentially the ability to step outside yourself and look back and make a judgment of how you're doing in real time. It's sort of like being able to coach yourself in real time. An example of it would be, say that you and I are in a verbal argument, And I have some good observing ego skill. I'll step outside myself and look back and say, gee, I'm angry right now, but I'm still fighting. Step outside myself again, look back, and I'll say, is this getting anywhere? But I'm still fighting. Finally, I'll step outside myself and look back and say, no, it's not getting anywhere, so why don't I quit? And then I do. Now, what would have happened if I didn't have observing ego ability? Keep going. You might end up getting in a fist fight, right? You're just on animal behavior, no rational thought. Observing ego is cool. It's your very ability to fine-tune what you're doing in approaching a woman as you do so. Has anybody ever had the experience of, you ran into this woman and you had a few moments communicating to her, and she was just so incredible, you couldn't believe it, but then you got blown out. Something happened and it just didn't go any further. And then hours later or days later, you slapped yourself in the forehead and said, what was I thinking? Why did I say that? Or why didn't I say that? Or why didn't I do that? Anybody ever, none of you guys ever had that experience? Well, you didn't have observing ego in the moment with that woman. That's why that happened. That's why you were slapping yourself later on. And why you had the curious, dry feeling in your lower abdomen. Okay? Well, observing ego, this ability to coach yourself in real time, can only happen if you're in a present-minded state. Okay? Have you ever driven your car to work and you don't really remember how you did that? Sort of like you just, oh, here I am, even though it's a half an hour drive. Where was your mind during that time, during that drive? It was in the past or the future. You were reviewing something from the past, or you were worrying or planning something in the future. You weren't in the present. Well, when you're in the past or the future, your life is essentially on autopilot. And you'll get whatever the world wants to give you. You end up getting the job no one else wanted, or the relationship no one else wanted, the life that no one else wanted, if you lack observing ego and the ability to be in the present. There's a long list, I recall, one of the other DYD programs that talks about what it is to be a man. And this list has things in it like being action-oriented, being decisive, all these character traits. Thinking about things like this, like being action-oriented or being decisive, can you make decisions in the past? Or can you be action-oriented in the past? No. Can you be action-oriented in the future that's not here yet? Or decisive in the future? No. You can only be action-prone and decisive in the present. So right off the bat, by letting your life be on autopilot, by not spending enough time in a present-minded state, you have just disqualified yourself from more than 50% of all the traits of mature masculinity and all the attractive traits of being a real man. Do you get that? That's how important observing ego is. How do you develop observing ego? The practice of being aware of the present and catching yourself living in the past in your head or living in the future too much in your head. You got to stop yourself from doing that and realize, oh my gosh, I just spent an hour daydreaming about the future when I could have been doing something now. I could have been self-aware for that time. So I've lost that time. Another way is to use a journal. You can imagine yourself looking down on yourself and be your own real-time coach. Okay? So as you go out, in the next few nights as you go out, try this out. Try purposely imagining being your own coach even as you're doing things you do. Advising yourself even as you're approaching women or talking with them. Don't get lost in the interaction. Have part of you in it and part of you looking down on it. And guess what's going to happen? The woman is going to perceive you as cool. That's what cool is, psychoanalytically. It's having observing ego and being able to fine-tune your behavior to what's coming your way, to responses you're getting. Another thing you can do is just make decisions, because they can't occur in the past or the future, so purposely just doing things, doing anything is better than doing nothing. I'm sure you've already heard something to that effect yesterday. Taking actions is better than doing nothing, even if you're going to fail. And then lastly, using your 5 senses. You can only use your 5 senses in the present moment. Okay? Any quick questions about what observing ego is and how it is cool? Without observing ego, it is impossible to change or grow. That's how important it is. None of this matters that you're learning today or in any seminar unless you have observing ego, the ability to change and grow and learn this information. Any comments? Yeah.
I wanna know if your inner game depends on your outer game.
No.
I mean, if you can.
Your outer game is the source. Your outer game comes from your inner game. So boundary function is the next part of mature masculine power. Your personal boundary works just like the border of a country. It's invisible but real. It's a circle around you, a sphere. It works like a shield that protects you from stress and hurt. And it also is a marker between what you control and what you don't. Okay? Now, there's a whole lot of things we don't control. This is a really, really important concept as far as understanding how to approach women. We don't control traffic. We don't control the weather. We don't control the economy. We don't control the job, the boss. We don't control women. We don't control other human beings. The most you will ever be able to do is advertise at another human being, including a woman. So has anybody ever gotten very frustrated with the responses they were getting with their game? Okay? That frustration you felt is what I call suffering. Suffering is also defined in Buddhism as being an attempt to control the uncontrollable. Burning energy, attempting to control the uncontrollable. Then you're suffering. A quick tip to know when you're suffering. In other words, when your personal boundary is riddled with holes in it and is weak or thin-skinned, is using the word should. If you've ever used the word should, as in traffic should move faster, my boss should give me a raise, that woman should respond to my Mac. Okay? Then you're suffering. You're investing energy and time too, wishing you controlled something that you don't. You'll never have absolute control of another person or a woman. And guess what? Control is creepy. Any creepy guys in here? Well, I got news for you. From time to time, you're all creepy. So am I. Because all human beings have at least a little bit of suffering that they go through. Things they wish would go their way. Things they wish they controlled. Okay? Well, when you put that on public display, it comes across as creepiness, and it's very unattractive, obviously. The alternative is to be detached from the outcome. Okay? We have to learn to be detached from the outcome. In other words, to do something that's called intention. That's where you put yourself out there. You express your personality, you try to communicate, you advertise yourself out in the social arena, but you're not attached to what happens in return. You're content to just go be yourself and offer some communication without expecting something back or getting frustrated over the result. And that is a boundary function. So has anybody ever heard of the term thick skin or thin skin? No? Yeah? Is it a real skin they're talking about? It's a skin around your inner game. It's a skin around your psychology, and it's invisible. And when you're thin-skinned, you're weak. You have holes in your boundary, and these holes are places where you have difficulty saying no to the outside world, where you're overly compliant. You do everything everybody tells you to do. Or you have difficulty hearing no from the environment. That's what makes a hole in your boundary. And so if you ever have trouble with the word no, that's where you have a hole in your boundary. That's where you have thin skin. Okay? Hearing no is the same as rejection. So has anybody had trouble with rejection in here? Okay? I mean, I would think that'd be one of the main reasons for wanting to learn about approaching women. The fear of rejection is so great. Well, that's a hole in your boundary where you're having trouble hearing the word no. Okay? All kinds of terrible things happen because of these holes in our boundary. Things like stress and negative ideas about our value can just float right in whenever they want, when we have holes in us. Somebody says, "You're a loser." Oh, okay. I must be a loser. Does anybody, nobody's going to admit to this, but does anybody know somebody who has had that problem? Where other people's opinions you take on as your identity or your value? You let other people determine what your value is? What's called external locus of control. Nobody has had that experience? Okay. The other thing that's bad about having holes in your boundary is your boundary works like a tank, and it carries your self-esteem, your positive energy, your happiness. What happens when you have holes in your boundary as far as your self-esteem goes? Leaks out. It's draining out all the time as long as you have a hole in your boundary. So has anybody had difficulty approaching women that they kind of sort of guessed had something to do with their self-esteem level? I must lack some self-esteem somehow. Well, your first step at fixing that problem is you got to fix your boundary. You got to get good at saying no and hearing no, tolerating rejection. Has anyone thought about rejection as a negative thing? It's a bad thing, right? We don't like it, right? It hurts, feels bad. Well, guess what? It's a benefit. In fact, the more rejection you get as early in your life as you can get it, the better. Because when rejection comes your way in the form of a no, it is patching up these holes in your boundary. It's making you a more solid man. It's giving you what you might call strength, psychologically. Have you ever known a guy who was not too good looking and maybe really short and not too bright? You don't know anybody like that? And yet you felt that guy was strong somehow. Physically weak, 90-pound weakling. But yet psychologically there's something very strong about him. I think about people like the late Christopher Reeves. You know, he couldn't even use his body anymore after his injury, and yet what a strong man. Or a tiny little guy like Gandhi, who actually influenced over 1 billion people. Pretty strong man, even though a little man. What gives you strength? Strength is how solid and tough your boundary is. Your ability to withstand rejection and your ability to say no to what doesn't work for you, to make your reality the frame, the dominant reality. Does this make sense to you guys? When you have thin skin, a woman can tell you your value. A woman can intimidate you. A woman can manipulate you and control you. Has anybody ever had that happen?
Thought I'd just take a moment and share in the middle of some of this really interesting content. The particular points that Paul is sharing right now, I think are some of the most important things to learn about being a man in general, okay, about being a successful, confident, happy man who feels fulfilled in his life, mature, kind of masculine. If you notice yourself tuning out at all, you might want to just take that as a sign that what he's talking about is probably something that you need to learn. Okay? Now, I notice everybody's, really paying attention, but if you're tuning out, if you're kind of going, I don't know if this is for me, that's probably the sign that this is the thing that you really need to work on. Because you can either work on this and get at the root of the problem, go right to the core and solve this and have everything else get solved, or you can avoid this and hold on to your problem and keep using it as your excuse for everything and your reason why things never work and your way to get attention from other people. And I'd much prefer that you paid attention, took this route, and really got to the root of the problem and got them solved.
Excellent.
Easy, guys.
All right. Well, that being said, we have a dilemma. If we're learning to be cool and having observing ego and paying attention to ourselves even as we are out there doing behaviors, and if we learn to have a good boundary and we're good at saying no and good at tolerating rejection, that still leaves us with a problem, doesn't it? How are we going to connect? Okay? How are we going to connect without being creepy? It feels like a no-win situation. Now, some other folks that lecture about this, Mystery, the RSD guys, they talk about a little term they use called IOIs, indicators of interest. There are two ways, actually, of doing these IOIs, these indicators of interest. Has anybody in here ever gone up to a girl and said, "Hey, I really dig you"? Like it's one of the first things you said? You did that? Okay. Yeah, I think at some point we all have done something like that. We've been, too much wearing our heart on our sleeve kind of a thing. That was an indicator of interest, okay? But it was kind of a dumbass indicator of interest. A lot of guys I know also have had a more subtle problem with this establishing of communication and of giving interest. They kind of hang out in the general vicinity of the girl, and they sort of don't say anything, and they put on that tough guy face, and they still don't say anything. They don't initiate any contact. Then they wonder, well, what happened? I mean, I was doing that George Clooney face that I learned about at DYD. Why didn't something just come up and happen? Well, actually, just being in the vicinity of a woman is an indicator of interest in itself. But what was missing for both of those people was intention, okay? Intention is putting yourself out there, making an effort to communicate and connect, but one which is simultaneously not controlling and attached to the outcome. okay? The first guy who just goes up to a woman and says, hey, I really dig you, he is not doing intention because he's trying to control her. He's wishing immediately that he'll have her attention, and he's very invested in the outcome. He's trying too hard. The second guy isn't doing intention because he's not making the effort. He's actually acting disinterested in the outcome and not making an effort either. So neither of these methods of approach works. What if there are two kinds of IOIs? What if there is an indicator of controlling interest or creepy interest? And what if there is an indicator of detached interest? You guys might start to use your observing ego to pay attention to this in yourself. As you make your first interactions with a woman, are you being controlling? Are you wishing for some outcome? Are you wishing things would go perfectly your way and getting yourself all nervous over this? And also telegraphing to her that you are indeed creepy. Or are you simply making an effort to connect and you have no interest at all in what's going to happen next? You don't require her to respond in any particular way. Well, being controlling is very unattractive, but being detached is very attractive, especially if you're indicating interest with your detachment. There are a lot of very beautiful women out there who don't get approached a lot. And many times that's because they're so intimidating to men. Men fear connecting with them in the first place. It feels good for somebody to be interested in you. So why would you not want a woman to feel good about knowing you? Has anybody had this subtle kind of problem where you kind of act like you're being a tough guy and you're sort of protecting yourself by being a tough guy, and you'd really like to connect to the woman. You don't want to be a wuss either, and you're caught between, well, what do I do? You know, it's not working being a tough guy that's, you know, sort of trying to pretend to be cool, and it's not working to put my heart on my sleeve either. You've had that problem? Mm-hmm. Any comments on that? It's kind of a subtle thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I notice sometimes, like, I pay real close attention to how I'm walking. If I'm actually concentrating on my walk, I know I've lost it. But if I just take my energy, ride it, and, like you're saying, not caring about the outcome, that's where it all clicks. I think another thing also with the skin is that it's really important to know that there's two types. There's one that's durable. Whatever you do is going to contribute to that, but there's also like temporary. Like someone could have the thinnest skin, and just in that moment, like they just took a shower, something externally happened, and they could have been, you know, like someone with 20 years of experience, you know, and they can just nail it, you know, right there. So.
All right. Thank you. This business of being able to be using intention to put yourself out there and yet not be attached to the outcome is a personal boundary function. You can only do it when you have a solid personal boundary. There's another thing that's very important, though, in the last part of mature masculine power. It's the energy that powers your boundary, and that's called confidence. Okay, pay attention. You've never heard of this. Positive emotional energy is the exact same thing as self-esteem. I finally get a guy to laugh there. Being full of self-esteem is the exact same thing as happiness. I've never heard of a person who is chronically depressed or anxious having a durably high self-esteem. And I've also never heard of a person with durably high self-esteem ever get very depressed or anxious for very long. Has anybody ever been a bit depressed over a woman? Or depressed over your skills with a woman? Has anybody ever been anxious about a woman, fearful of a woman? Okay. Well, this is caused by a lack of self-esteem in you. That's what that just said. And I want you to learn how exactly, almost in a recipe-like way, how to build self-esteem. Confidence is exactly the type of self-esteem that is the antidote for your anxiety. Just like I told you earlier, it's impossible to be both fearful and humored at the same time, amused. It's also impossible to be both anxious and confident at the same time. So if you can find a way to be confident, you will not have anxiety, at least during those moments that you are confident. Okay. Anxiety. I'm going to draw you guys a quick graph here. It shows you exactly how anxiety works. Okay, this is anxiety. This is what's called proximity. Whoa. Proximity to the feared object or event. A lot of us walk around with, quite a degree of anxiety here. The closer we get to the thing we fear, the higher the anxiety rises. Okay? Has anybody ever noticed this in approaching women? If you're, 30 feet away, okay, you're all right with that. But you start walking toward her set, the anxiety rises a bit the closer you get. Most of us spend the greater part of our lives going up this curve until it gets unbelievably uncomfortable and we can't handle it anymore, and we go right back down this curve. That is approach anxiety, okay? You get to this intolerable point, and then you back down. But what a lot of people don't know is that there is a peak. There has to be a peak. And it so happens on the other side of that curve, the anxiety goes down permanently. Okay? If you really, really go for it, there will be a peak. The anxiety can't go up permanently. It will peak. And on the other side, you're home free. And your anxiety will always be lower. You can't go backward. Okay? Well, at this peak, something has to happen called courage. Okay? I go through a whole process in some of my other seminars, and actually another DYD product, Deep Inner Game, that goes through the anatomy of anxiety and confidence and courage and how they work. But rather than going all the way through that now, let's just say that there are two things that can cause anxiety. Every anxiety you've ever had has been caused by one of these two things. Either there was a loss or there was a lack of confidence about something. Okay? Somebody tell me about an anxiety situation they were in. Briefly. Sir?
I would say being here is like an anxiety situation. You're surrounded by people you don't know, and you're trying to say something you have inside of you,
Okay, so you're surrounded by people you don't know,
Yeah.
and you're trying to
And
start a
using
conversation.
a language you're not familiar with. That's also anxiety.
Okay, it's in a language you're not familiar with?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I told you earlier, try just saying Guten Tag. Okay. I understand. So you're in a situation where there's a group of people you don't know, like stranger anxiety, okay? So what's going on? There are only two possible causes of your anxiety, okay? Either loss is coming in, or you are low on confidence. Okay? Now, what would the loss be in his situation where there's a group of people he wants to approach? What's the loss? But what is he literally losing? He's not losing anything. What's he losing? Let me tell you some real losses. A bill that arrives in the mail is a loss of money. Okay? Getting broken up with is losing a person. Somebody passing on is losing a person. Getting an injury is a loss of health, literal loss of health. Developing a disease is a loss of health. Okay? Losing your wallet is a loss. Okay, these are all real losses. But what loss is there in approaching a group of people if you have a solid boundary? Now, if you got big holes in your boundary and those people reject you or belittle you or make fun of you in some way, well, you're letting them go into your boundary and take some of your self-esteem. You're letting that loss happen. But if you have a solid boundary that's able to tolerate rejection, what's the loss? There is none. Okay? Loss doesn't happen to us all that often. It doesn't happen to us 24/7. Threatened loss doesn't happen to us 24/7. Now, maybe back in caveman days, there were saber-toothed tigers around all the time, and we were constantly at the risk of loss of our life or health. But not today. So this isn't going on all that much. The bigger problem is your confidence. Okay? The losses that come our way, do we absolutely control them? No. They happen. Losses outside of our boundary. Confidence, where is confidence located? Inside or outside of our boundary? Inside. Now, you've heard of some guys who like to drink liquid confidence. Okay? Beer. Liquid courage. Okay? Well, that's outside of you. Okay? So that's a losing game. When we use external things to try to prop up our confidence, we lose. Well, once you're anxious, let's say you're anxious, you're low on confidence and maybe, you recently got a big bill or something. Now you're anxious. There are only 3 possible things you can do with anxiety, and everything you've ever done with anxiety was one of these 3 things. You either got avoidant and impulsive with it, meaning you ran away, or you got busy just to be busy. You started doing actions without thinking. You got all kind of jittery and physically nervous. Or you started acting like a victim. That's your second option for anxiety, called masochism, where you get all hopeless and helpless and you take on a sort of poor me attitude. Has anybody ever begged to a woman? Oh, nobody? Okay. Oh, honest man. All right. Okay. Well, you were being a victim at that time. You were employing a highly effective attraction mechanism of little boys. Okay? I'm not just singling you out. We all have done that at some stage of our life. We were once all little boys. As a small child, when you play the victim and you say, poor me, and oh, what am I going to do without you? And I'm so helpless without you, and this sort of thing. As a small boy, that is cute, and it's highly adaptive because it encourages mommy to come and take care of you. It really worked as an attraction mechanism, so to speak, when we were young. If we carry that method of attraction into adulthood, though, it is quite a turnoff, isn't it? It is being a wussy. Got it? Well, there's one other method that you can use anxiety in, and that is courage. Courage is defined in many ways. Some of the best definitions I've heard, one of them came from the film Saving Private Ryan. It simply is doing the right thing, regardless of how you feel. Remember the beginning scene of that film? When the soldiers are running up on Normandy Beach? They're terrified, peeing their pants, and yet they're still courageous because they did the right thing. Courage is the only thing that can get you over that peak in approach anxiety. It's doing the right thing no matter how you feel. There's an awesome quote about it too by Teddy Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man in the arena whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who knows the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those timid and cold souls who have never known either victory or defeat. It's quite a quote. The moment you do courage, you're entirely alone in the world. Even if you were recently standing with your buddies and they're like, all right, man, you can do it. At the very moment of courage in approaching a woman, doing the right thing, you're entirely alone. And then ironically, the moment after courage, everybody wants to be with you. Everybody wants to join in. Have you ever been in a meeting or a group gathering where there was some great wrong happening and nobody's really saying anything? Like maybe at work, a boss is doing the wrong thing. Nobody says anything. And then finally, some guy stands up and says, you know what, this is wrong. I don't believe in this. And then it's after that that everybody else says, yeah, I think the same thing. Do you ever notice that effect? That first person did the courage. The other guys didn't. Okay, so courage is also a leadership aspect. Okay? And displaying that to a woman, you're going to show yourself to be a leader. Courage is the only thing that can get you over your approach anxiety. Does anybody have any thoughts or experiences about courage or lack of it? Does anybody think that you have to go find courage somewhere or borrow it or buy it? You don't. As cowardly as you may have been your whole life, courage was in you all along because courage is simply a decision. And if you're living and breathing, you can do courage. None of us has an excuse when it comes to courage. For a number of years, I have had a fear of plane flight. For whatever reason, developed somehow. And I make myself go on a flight at least twice a year. In the past few months, I've gone on like 8 flights. And then the one out here was like one of the longest I've been on in a long time. But I was like, I've got to go. It's the right thing to do. There's no other way. So I'm doing it. Somebody once said that this business of doing courage comes down to recognizing that there is something more important than your fear. Think about that. There's something more important than your fear. When you're standing there being a wallflower in a bar or club, and there's a woman you'd really like to approach, remember, what's more important? Your fear? Or potentially knowing her? Or at the very least, improving your skills? All right, thank you.